What's up, guys? It's Landscaping to the Point, and I am back, and so is JC, and we are here. And he is Landscaping to the Point means business because it is that time to where we get live and we give you all the info and everything, and we get straight to the point, guys. We're here, and we're going to talk about some stuff. Josh isn't here. We don't know where Josh is. He's lost in the internet and the AI. We can't get him programmed up today, but we're here and we're ready to rock and roll it today, guys. So, welcome all that is joining us, no matter where you are joining us, or if you're listening to us on Spotify or iHeart or wherever you're listening to. Hey, thanks for listening to us and thanks for watching us. So today we're going to start talking about spring. I think 90% of people that have had snow, which is pretty much about 50% of the United States had snow this year, is ready for spring. I don't know about you, JC. Are you ready for spring? Do you have snow still on the ground? What's it like out there?
Yeah, we still have a lot of snow on the ground. All the piles are everywhere. All the yards are completely covered. And I was ready for spring about 3 weeks ago, man. So hurry up and get here.
Yes, I agree with you. I am ready for it. That last snowstorm that we got was pretty heavy, and then we got a couple little snowstorms. But I feel I am ready for it. I'm ready to get out and do stuff. Half, where the snow was pushed and shoveled, there's piles, and then half the yards are snow covered, and the other half is clear. So I'm ready to go. I really am. Um, I've had a lot of customers say, "Oh, you're probably happy that we got all this snow this year." I am, but I'm not because we had those 3 years, 4 years of no, hardly any snow to where it's like I'm accustomed to it. I'd rather just keep going and on that streak of just barely any snow. And I know we had to get it, so we got it this year. But I'm done. I'm ready. I'm ready to go out. I'm ready to start doing some lawn stuff, get out there and grill some more. I grilled the other day because we had some 50-degree weather here. We had 50-degree weather here today, which is beyond belief, but still it didn't melt all the snow, which kind of sucked.
It took a while for that to happen, man.
Yeah, you're like, oh, it's 50 out. I can wear shirts, I can wear my shorts and go out there and enjoy it. And then you're like, why is there snow out there? Why? Why do I gotta have snow out there? But it is still February. So, welcome, Brightstone. We see you over on Instagram. Welcome back on, brother. Hopefully you got a good joke for us, something springy. I don't know. With you, who knows what you're gonna give us sometimes. But but yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to get the mower out, man. I really am. I'm ready to get the weed whip out, the mower out, and get some stuff. He said it was 80 degrees in Florida. Thanks, Brightstone. We
Yeah,
don't really
thanks for
care what
reminding
it's
me,
like in
man.
Florida. It's 80 in Florida 90% of the time.
That's
Thanks.
probably cold for him too. Like they wear
Yeah, he's
sweaters
probably
at
walking
80
around with a
degrees.
sweater and some gloves, like and a hat, like he's got this big old hat on, probably like ready to go. Like it's 80. I can't take my hat off till it's 81. Just mess with you, Brightstone. Oh man. Yeah, I'm ready to do it. Our equipment's ready to go. I think I'm ready to just get out there and get going, but it's spring, so what do we do? I mean, it's time to start putting out some flyers and start hitting some areas up. I don't know, um, I think that's the best time is right now because a lot of people, are debating on what to do, so
I sorry about that. I don't ever think that there's. I gotta shut my notifications off. I don't ever think that there's a bad time, and we probably talked about this a million
yeah,
times before. Um, to like market and start flyers and stuff like that. You never want to like be late. You know what I mean? Because
no,
there is a point where you're too late. But I kind of contradicted myself. But there's never really a bad time to do it. As long as you're doing it, it's good.
yeah,
Um, it's like it's like it's you. You get your business prepared. You're keeping motivated too.
right. I think there isn't really a bad time to be ready to put flyers out. I think you can do it at any point. Um, I feel like though sometimes if you put it out during the winter and you're trying to push for lawns a lot, especially in our area, I feel like people aren't looking for their lawn because they're working on thinking about snow, in the
Mm.
cold. They're not really worried about, landscaping or any of that stuff or bushes growing. So I feel like you got to get it just perfectly timed, and I feel like when it starts to warm up between that time to where people they start to see people out there doing work, that's the perfect time to get out there and start putting out that stuff.
Mm.
But then after that, I feel like the whole rest of the year, you got plenty of time to advertise till that snow hits. And when that snow hits, it's in our area, it's like, okay, let's hold off for a little bit and push, stop pushing, snow, the lawn and maybe push snow, if you're into snow and stuff. So
I
yeah,
think
I think
though,
that
like if you're consistent with it, because it, you could be too early if you do it just one time. So I have this like window company called, I think it's like Anderson Window, and they'll send out stuff in the mail like 5 times a year, and
right.
it's even like during the on season and off season. And it gets to a point where it's so annoying that you expect them to bring you their next advertisement in your mailbox. So like if you ever needed that service at some point, I know to call them because they're the ones that are always, sending the stuff. So I think if you plan it accordingly and you maybe schedule like when you're going to send out these flyers and stuff like that, and you do it consistently to the same people over and over again in the same areas, I think people will get used to you. It may be annoying, but when they need your service, they might call you.
Right. And I think that's a good thing is consistency is key, like you said. And I think you need to get your business out there. And they say, I've heard before, I don't know what you've heard, but I've heard before is it takes at least 5 to 7 times for somebody to see your name to actually realize that you're a business out there
Mm.
and to realize that you're out there doing work in that type of field. So by constantly putting it out at least 5 times a year or having your name on your truck or on your guys' equipment or on the employees, like having your name being promoted as much as possible is going to get you more seen and more notice, I think, out there. So,
Mm.
yeah. Brightstone does have a couple of jokes. I'll get one right going now, and then we'll hop on to another one later. Here we go. I asked my yard what its spring goals were. It said, just trying to stay rooted. Very good one. Very good one,
Definitely a dad
Brightstone.
joke. Yeah.
Yes, very daddy, but we'll take it. We'll take it today, Brightstone. Thank you, brother. But yeah, I think there's a good time for promoting, a good time for always getting out there. But talking with another guy today, he said that he's going to take the next month and just prepare. And I feel like, when you got the ability to get out there and get your stuff done, because you never know when somebody's going to call and say, hey, I want this big job done. I think if you have the ability to go out and do it, when the snow's gone,
Mm.
get out there and do it. It's work that you're going to be able to bring in and be able to get done as soon as possible. So I think preparing ahead of time, if you got this whole winter like we have this year, if you're not doing snow removal, you got plenty of time to get prepared and be ready for the spring to where once it starts to roll and it's nice and not wet, soggy, when it's nice and dry, because you don't want it soggy when you're trying to do leaves. JC knows this too. You don't want to be out there messing with those wet leaves. There's that time that we have to mess with them sometimes in the fall, but in the spring, if you can deal without it,
Mm.
deal without it and wait just a little bit longer if you have to. So, but there's always other stuff to do. I think that's the perfect time if you got some, a couple prunings you got to do or cut back some grasses or something like that. Go out and do that right away. Try to get that done and get it ready for the spring. So, um, what's one thing, JC, that when you start up the mower, what's one thing that you always might forget to do that you're like, dang, I should have did that before I started this first cut?
Oh man, I'm pretty good with my maintenance, so I can't say that like I should have changed the oil or anything like that because I do that pretty constantly. I don't know, man. Maybe like forgetting to because I don't sharpen my blades when I put it away, so Sometimes I go out there with dull blades and I forget that I didn't sharpen them. Um, Sometimes simple things like running out of stabilizer or mix 50-1 mix for my trimmer or for my leaf blowers. Um, Gasoline, like because you put away for
Right.
the winter time and then you use it all up on your snow blowers, and next thing you know, you're trying to go out there with your mower and you have no gas.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I can't say that there's always one thing that I forget.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that I think being prepared and kind of trying to sharpen your blades as soon as you can when you're done for the year and changing your oil. I mean, that's one thing we did this year is when we stopped for the season. That was like the next day. It was like, okay, we're changing oil, we're changing spark plugs, we're changing filters, we're sharpening blades, we're greasing stuff up. We want to make sure that mower is ready, tip top to go, and ready to go. And one thing that we always do is because I've heard a lot of people trickle charge their batteries.
Mhm.
Is that we like to go ahead and just start the mower up, at least every couple of weeks, and make sure that it starts up, let it run for a while. Even if it's in a cold building, kind of let it get that cold start going and let it run for at least a half hour. But open the doors, please. Open the doors. Don't try to run it with the doors closed. Open the doors and let it run. That way, you're not when you're going ready to go out that first day, like go to start it and the battery's dead. You want to make sure that you're good to go on that stuff. One thing we do literally a week before is we go through all our small equipment.
Mm.
That's one of the things we do is just go through all that small equipment, change the gas filters at that point, and the spark plugs and the other air filters and all that stuff. Check your heads, make sure your heads are all greased up and got line in them. There's been so many times I forgot about putting line in them, and I go out and then I'm like, you get to that first yard and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go through this whole line today because I'm only going to do a couple of jobs, and then you're like, man, I ran out of line already, like, and then that's the same day that like I forget to put the line in the truck too. So you're like, where's the line? Why I got a whole spool. What did I do with the spool? So you got to make sure that you got that line with you.
Uh,
So
One
you
thing
know,
that I'm pretty bad at is when I put my stuff away for the winter time. My garage is relatively clean, but as the winter goes by, you're getting your snowblower in and out, and then your Amazon boxes are getting piled up in there and all that stuff. So when the season starts, I think that I don't have something. I go out and buy it, and then when I clean my garage up, I find that I have two of them.
right.
You know, that's probably one thing that I do, without fail. You
Right.
know?
I think that happens to a lot of us. Is we'll get into the garages like that, and we'll just, mine gets a lot. I'll tell you, during the summer, it gets pretty hectic to where there's tools everywhere, and then by the end of the year, you've already bought like two extra of everything, and you're like, okay, and you start putting the stuff away once winter comes, and you're like, how did I end up with 14 screwdrivers? I don't remember having 14 screwdrivers last year. Why did I buy so many more? And then the one thing that you don't use that much, you're like, how did I only got one for the whole year? Like what happened to the other two that I had? So I think that's one of the things you got to be mindful and kind of try to keep an eye on if you can, and make sure you got the right amount and make sure that you're not having too many. But sometimes you can't have enough of screwdrivers, so
Yeah.
that's always good. So JC, since we're going into the spring, what's a good tip that you would tell anybody in business out there? How would you prepare yourself to go out the first day into going into spring rush?
Well, you're going to be excited. You're going to be well. Some people will be excited. Some people will be eager, and they'll end up trying to bite off more than they could chew. That definitely happened to me. You have to be able to gauge it right, because, like you were saying earlier, if there's some things that you can do, go ahead and do them. But a lot of people try to do things that they shouldn't be doing so early into the season, like you said. When lawns are still soft, they're still raw. The snow is still melting out there. One of the biggest mistakes that people end up doing, and coming from the fertilizer side of things, because you used to work in that industry and you still do fertilization, is some people will do that too early.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of money, and customers are not going to be satisfied because it's not going to produce results. But people make that mistake, and it's like every year is not the same. Like you can't start, May 4th every year because obviously the conditions might be different. There may be years where you have to do things a little earlier than you did the year before, but a lot of that comes down to gauging things. Um, and sometimes you have to be a little more patient, even though you want that spring to come as soon as possible so you can get out there and do work. But you have to be really smart about it before you step into the season.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think timing makes a big difference too. Like you said, timing, weather conditions, especially when it comes to fertilizer.
Mm.
You know, I I see a lot of people that rush out the door, um, especially some of these bigger companies that have tons of fertilization companies that rush out the door and they put down whatever they can put down just to get that first application in, but then they turn around and mess up because they miss that opportunity to get that pre-emergent down because they waited so long because they wanted to hurry up and get the first application in because they have so many customers. And like you said, don't bite off more than you can chew. Do what you can and don't try to take on so much.
Mm.
And work it in increments. And the best thing, especially with pre-emergent, is to make sure that that ground temperature is at least 50 to 55 degrees for 3 consecutive days. And right now, I mean, yeah, we're having 50-degree weather, but is the ground 50 degrees? Probably not. Probably not, but later on in the week it might be close to 50 degrees, but then we're going to turn right back to that cold snap. So is it perfect timing? No,
Mm.
it's still not perfect timing. So you gotta be mindful of the weather, when you're doing fertilization applications, no matter if you're a homeowner, a commercial guy or whatever, but you gotta mind and keep an eye on them weather conditions because you don't want to mess up, especially when you're putting down pre-emergent or any type of fertilizer. I mean, you might want to put some starter fertilizer, put some seed down. So you're going to want to watch your seed. So you want to make sure that you're not putting your seed down too early too.
Mm.
So, you judge everything, when it comes to a business or, even if you're doing your own lawn, you want to make sure that you judge it just right. So that way you don't get too ahead of yourself or get too far behind, like you're saying, and be like, hey, like it's now May 15th and I need to put my pre-emergent down. Well, you might have missed the timing to actually put down that pre-emergent down. But
Yeah, and the other thing too, it's like sometimes people have that peer pressure where
mhm.
they see a company that's out there already doing stuff way too early, but it kind of like makes you think like, oh, should I get my crew out there? Should I start, doing some services? And just because you see them doesn't mean they're doing the right thing. And then again, to your point, when it comes to the fertilizer and pre-emergence, you also don't want to be late to the game, like you said, and get to your supplier and find out that there isn't any pre-emergent left, and then your customers are asking you, how come you didn't put a pre-emergent application
Yeah.
down? So
Yeah, I think that's a good thing is, a lot of places, especially around us, don't even have pre-emergent in yet. So it's one of those things that you got to definitely check with wherever you're getting your pre-emergent. If you're getting from a box store, they already got that pre-emergent ready for you to go. But if you're going to a local fertilization company that's going to give it to you, like Site One or I don't know who else, but uh, whoever they are, just make sure that you communicate with them and see when they're going to bring in that pre-emergent and make sure that you can get in there and get that pre-emergent before, yeah, like you're saying, before they're totally gone with it and they're not ordering anymore because you don't want to be that guy that, like you're saying, is like, yeah, I got 40 customers and I waited till May, because I think, May's going to be the perfect time. And then, oh, they're out of pre-emergent. They've already gone on to the next step,
hmm.
so you don't want to wait that long. So,
Now, another mistake a lot of people do, a lot of, I should say, a lot of people, a lot of companies do, is they put too much product down
yeah.
that that it ends up costing them more, like as a company. And that's an art form. You really have to study like how much product you're putting on a property, because you could be putting too little, and you could be putting too much. And if you're putting too little, you're not getting results, and you're putting too much, you're causing negative things to that lawn, and then which you're gonna have to repair at some point. So definitely, if you're one of those companies out there that's just kind of eyeballing your fertilizers, man, I'd take a second look at that.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do with that, even like what you're talking is like read the bag. The
Mm.
bag's always going to tell you all the information you need. There's a label on there. It's going to tell you exactly. And a lot of these fertilizer companies, they put on there, like, if you have a Lesco spreader, they already have that on there. If you have an Echo spreader, they have that on there. If you got a Scott spreader, they have the what that should be at. So that way you can look at it yourself and say, okay, I needed to be at number 14, so I'm going to put it at 14. So you're not going out there and cranking it all the way up and putting way too much fertilizer, or you're putting it way down to where you're not getting enough coverage out there. So definitely go ahead and read that label, because that's going to tell you a whole much more than you need to know on how to put it down. So that way you're getting the right amount. A lot of things I also see is a lot of companies not measuring lawns.
Right.
And that comes into a factor where they're just saying, okay, here, we'll do it for this. And then, they go out there with one bag and it should have been in like 3 bags, and you're like, how do you make sure that this does it right when you don't know what your square footage is?
Right.
So, especially if you're a company, go ahead and get out there and measure that lawn. It's always good to go out there every couple of years and measure a lawn. If you're not used to that property, go out there and measure that lawn, because that's going to make a big difference when you're out there fertilizing. So
one of my biggest pet peeves too is that, let's face it, a lot of companies that offer these services don't really know what they're doing. There's a few of them that do. There's not a lot of them that don't. There's a lot of them that don't, I should say. And they'll push fertilizer, they'll push all this stuff, and they don't apply lime. Or they think that, 2 bags of lime, we'll put this down as a standard application. And you don't know if the lawn needs it or not, so you're also wasting product if it doesn't need it. If you're putting too little, again, you're not getting anything out of it, and you're just kind of throwing away product. And if you're putting too much, then you're causing some bad things to happen to that property. So, it's lime is needed when the lawn needs it, like for certain things. You have to get your soil test to find what level that pH is. And then, once you figure that out, or if you need to adjust it, then you apply, your lime. And from there, your fertilizer will take effect, because if it's within that specific range where it needs to be, then you're going to get the most utilization out of your fertilizer.
And I think that's a good thing, what you said there, JC, because a lot of companies don't test their lawns. They don't go out there and test the lawns. Do you know how to test a lawn?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think what you guys need to do is, you going on about testing lawns, you need to get a soil probe. So there's a soil probe that looks like a T-shaped handle, and it's got a circular shape. You stick it in the ground. It's going to pull out some soil samples. You're going to want to put them in a bag. You're going to go across the yard a couple of times, and make sure that you pull up a couple different samples throughout the yard, and then take it to site 1, or you can send it to your Department of Ag and have it sampled, tested, and they'll give you all the readings on it, like JC saying is the pH of it. So that way exactly if you're doing it right. Because like JC saying is, you want to make sure that you're giving that great optimization for the fertilizer to take effect. I think there's a lot of companies that are out there that don't do it, probably have never done it, unless the customer says, well, hey, how about this? But you probably should test your soil at least, every couple of years, just to make sure that you're doing the right application that you need to do for a lawn. Definitely. I think, like you said, there's a lot of companies that are out there fertilizing it, and they don't know what they're doing. They really don't. They, they're out there, they're just going out there doing it. One thing I do see a lot of companies doing is, you might be in lawn care and landscaping, but they're fertilizing and they're not licensed. I think that's I see a lot of that everywhere, that people aren't licensed. And
you're asking for trouble, man.
Yeah, that you are asking for trouble. You want to make sure that you go out and get licensed. If not, work with another company that might be able to fertilize for you. So that way you can go out and, sell the job and then let them do it, because then that's going to make your customer more happier that you're working with somebody that you trust to do the fertilization for you. So definitely, I think if you don't be licensed, you should go to jail. That's what I think you should happen.
Most people are going to want to go to jail instead when they see the fines that they get.
Oh yeah, the fines are outrageous. I mean, I know in my state the fines are, it starts out not bad. It's 500 for the first offense, but then I think it's 5,000 and then 30,000. So,
Mm,
I mean, you don't want to mess around because literally, a company's you're going to get screwed real quick. You're going to be out of business. You're going to be jail. I think I think it's that 30,000 and I think it's 90 days in jail at that same point too.
Jesus.
So I think that can really hurt you in the long run. So, yeah, definitely go get licensed or like I said, work with somebody that wants to help you out and, grow your business to where you can be able to grow great. There is a lot of companies that fertilize and if you are working with another company that's going to fertilize your lawns for you, make sure that they're licensed too. Make sure that they have their license. So I think that's one of the main things you need to do. Don't send them to Joe Blow's lawn and fertilization company and then find out that they're not even fertilized licensed and you're like, okay, what do I do here? So,
Mm.
but so we're talking about fertilization, JC. Uh oh, here we go. Here's a good one. What about spraying? Should I go out and spray my lawn right now in the spring? I think I see crabgrass. Is there crabgrass growing right now?
It's not crabgrass growing now. It was left over from the year before. So no, that's a great question. Like, should you be
Right.
spraying out there? And then also too, there's a certain time when you should be spraying.
Yeah.
When you shouldn't be spraying is during the summer, in the summer heats,
Yep.
in the summer heat, I should say. You want to hit that early, and you want to hit that late into the fall. But the other thing too is a lot of people think that the weeds that are there now just came up, and that's not the case. A lot of that is your Poa annua that kind of stayed hibernating into the under the snow and under the ground and then popping up. Your crabgrass ain't going to come up it's going to die off in the wintertime, come back up in your once if you didn't get that pre-emergent down, at the right
Right.
time. But early spring, I mean, yeah, it depends on what you're doing. But there's a proper way of spraying too, you know?
Right. There is.
Mm,
There is a proper way to spray. There's a proper way to mix. And I think that you got to make sure that, like you're saying, is the spray at the right time of year.
mm,
A lot of people try to spray during when it's 90 degrees, 80 degrees, and then they burn lawns.
mm,
And going back to that, I heard this from we buy our fertilization stuff from SiteOne. And it was kind of funny that he told me there was a company that came in and bought a ton of fertilizer and just put down fertilizer, and they turn around and burn lawns left and right because they didn't know what they were doing and how to spread it, how to put it down, none of that stuff. So I think if you're going to do it, go ahead and get for licensed and then go out and try to work for a company that does it or mentor against somebody and find out how to get to do it the right way, because just because you got a license doesn't mean that you know how to fertilize either. You got to know how far apart you got to put your applications, especially when you're spraying. You got to make sure that you don't overspray onto bushes and kill bushes or plants. So you want to know exactly what you're spraying for and what kind of weeds they are too. So I mean, there's a lot of people that I see that go out there and spray these lawns and say, "Yeah, I sprayed this," and then their bushes are dead, because they sprayed the lawn. So watch what you do, because
mm.
it can come in and bite you in the butt too. JC, have you ever seen somebody burn a bunch of plants because they wanted to treat their weeds in their bed and thought they could just spray right over everything?
Yeah, I have. I laugh because I have a neighbor that's you would think after the first time he did it, he wouldn't do it again, but yeah, you can't fix stupid sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, you have people that again, like I've seen companies do it, and sometimes not intentionally.
Right.
Sometimes like they just mix up the chemicals or they grab the wrong stuff. Um, but I've seen people that will take glyphosate, Roundup, and think that it's only going to kill the weeds, and they spray the entire lawn, or they spray the majority of their property with glyphosate. I can't even say glyphosate. They'll spray the entire property, and next thing you know, they wreaked havoc on their lawns. And probably going to this point is my other concern. It should be my number one concern is how unsafe people are when they are applying these chemicals. And if you are a business owner, like, that stuff's no joke. You have to take caution with any type of liquid chemical, or even granular chemical that you're applying on your property. You got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of your employees. You got to consider whether your customers have pets. You don't want to be causing any damage to that. If they have kids, like, you really got to take the safety measures to do it right.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I see a lot of companies, and I'm not going to name companies, but in our area, there's a couple bigger companies that do fertilization. And they get in a lot of young guys that don't know what they're doing. And it's really just to help them out get throughout the season, which is a good thing. And they don't do it right. Like you say, they just go out and spray over everything. And so then you can tell when you go to that yard that, it was just done fertilized, and you can see the fert pellets all over the kids' toys, or all over the dog's toys, because they didn't take the time to actually go out there and move that stuff. And I think you got to learn how to do it the right way and be able to be safe, because like you said, putting chemicals down is dangerous. It's one of those things that we do as a service that, a lot of people don't realize that it can be dangerous for dogs. It can be dangerous for pets and animals and kids and anything out there, anybody out there, even to yourself. So do it the right way. We
And
got a couple
like you said, you got to read the bag.
Right. Yeah.
Because people think that you just drop granular fertilizer down or pre-emergent down and that's it. Some of them you have to water after the fact. Some of them you have to water the lawn prior to, especially when you have your smaller grains, your powdery type of substances. A lot of those, like, you have to wet the lawn before you actually apply that product so it sticks to the leaves. And if you're just dumping dust onto a lawn and it's a windy day and you're not, like, you didn't water it prior to so it could stick, that's just blowing in the wind. Now you got respiratory problems,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We got a question from Instagram from Josh from JBS Lawn Care Services. What's up, Josh? Josh says, is it worth to add these services or not? Fertilization.
Man, it depends. And I'll tell you firsthand, because when I started off, like, I was actually considering doing it, and I did it for a little bit, very, very short. It's very complex on the business side of things. And it depends on your workload, how much, if you have a crew. If I were you, if you had a big crew, I'd have a crew specific for fertilizers, because it's time consuming. You're using different products. You have to price every customer differently. It's not like a leaf cleanup where you could go a flat rate.
No.
Some lawns need certain things, others don't. And you really, let's again get yourself licensed. That's it's not only you're getting it for for credentials, but you're also getting it because you're educating yourself too. A lot of it too, like, it depends, man, how big you are. Are you storing all these chemicals at a facility, or are you getting them as a need be basis, whenever you need it? Pricing, all that stuff. Are you applying it right? Again, it comes down to the pricing. And I know that a lot of companies will do a one size fit all application, and that's not the right way to go about it, because every lawn is different. You have different grass types, you have different soil, different soil compounds. You have just so many different things. Lawns that have good draining, some lawns that don't. People with irrigation, people that don't. Like, it's very entailed. You really definitely have to know what you're doing. And if you're willing to
Right.
have patience and learn how to do it, then I wouldn't say you could make money off of it for sure. But it's a really delicate type of thing where you have to do it a certain way. You have to do it the right way.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. Like I said, get yourself licensed and then learn from somebody. I think that's the first thing you got to do because, um, like you said, not every yard's the same price. Every job's going to be priced different when it comes to fertilization. And the main thing, Josh, is what you got to learn about is that you want to be able to spray it the right way. You want to put it down the right way because putting something down on a yard that you don't need to put down could turn around and kill the yard. So you want to make sure that you're putting down the right chemicals. There's a lot of chemicals that are out there that aren't meant for lawns. They're meant for trees or shrubs or like JC said before, there's Roundup. There's all kinds of different types of Roundup that can totally destroy a yard in like seconds. So you want to make sure that you put down the right stuff and chemicals can be expensive. But sometimes chemicals are cheaper. But you don't always want the cheapest chemical too when you're doing an application because that's not it's not going to help you out in the long run either. So you got to do some research sometimes. And I think when you get licensed with the state, with like I am, we do a lot of intensive training every 3 years, which they go over certain chemicals that are pulled off of regulatory. And then there's some that are put on that, can be changed and help out for certain weeds and stuff. So, and then coming back to that question, it's always good to do it. But like JC said, you want to be able to have someone dedicated to be able to do it because it does take time. And, the storing of the chemicals, because you're going to have to store chemicals. And you got to have it in a safe place away from anybody that can touch it. You got to have it locked up. There's a lot of rules to running a landscape and fertilization company. So that's one of the things you want to know, that it can be a plus in the long run, but in the long run, it can be a negative too sometimes. So
here's the deal. So if you learn how to do things right, correctly, get your license, educate yourself, know how to do it, you're going to separate yourself from other businesses that don't do the same. And the results that you produce, the services that you offer are going to be a lot more top quality than any other company that's around you that thinks that they know what they're doing. The other thing to that is we all know rain days, right? Where we can't go out to a property and mow a lawn. And that's an easy fix. The next day you're available. The next day it's nice out that you could get the mower out there. You could just go out there and mow the lawn. When it comes to fertilizers, you really have to watch the weather because you could be putting down quite a bit of expensive products on a lawn. And then next thing you know, it gets washed out. Your customer calls you back again because it rained, and you have to go back and reapply product again. So again, it's not the same as like mowing lawns. It's not the same as doing leaf cleanups. It's very detailed. It's a science. It really is a science.
It is a science. Yeah. Fertilization is a science. You are correct about that. And just to get for everybody is, JC's right on that. You got to know the weather because there is some chemicals and some fertilizer that you don't want to put down the day before it rains within, a couple hours. And a lot of them will tell you on the label, either on the label, the chemical, or on the bag. And it'll tell you like when to put it down. Like JC said earlier, is that there is some that you want to make sure that the water's watered beforehand. So, a good thing for me is when I go out and fertilize on those ones, you want to make sure you're there early in the morning when it's dewy, or if they got an irrigation system, make sure that they're getting it watered before you go out there instead of just showing up and putting that application down and it not totally take effect. And then the customer's calling you, like he's saying, what happened to my lawn? Why is this not working? Why isn't it helping out? So, yeah, I mean, there's some pluses and negatives to it. Josh asks, are machines involved and are they costly? Well,
it depends what you want to do.
Yeah. Josh, there is machines. But first off, when you first start out, you're going to want to start out with a regular push spreader. And a good push spreader can run you around, I want to say $300 to $500 for a push spreader. And then doing chemical wise, you're going to want a backpack. But as you move up, depending on how many places you're doing, you might want a tank sprayer, which is going to cost you anywhere from 5 to 15 grand. And then if you want a ride-on spreader sprayer, that's going to cost you, I want to say the cheapest one I've seen, which was at Equip last year, was I think $7,000, and the most expensive one was like $25,000. So there's different types of riding spreaders and sprayers, but I mean the prices can change, but if you're just doing a couple yards and you are licensed, I mean I've run a stand-on spreader for years for a company before that I worked for that taught me how to do it. And I know how to push spread. So I do a lot of push and spread and spot treat with, a basic backpack sprayer. So I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it. But I do have a tank to also spray full lawns if I need to. So, I think that there's, prices can get expensive when you're doing fertilization. And if you're just doing, let's say 1 to 5 customers a year, you don't want to go all in and buy that stand-on sprayer and the backpack sprayer and a push spreader and all this other stuff. I mean, your best bet would just be to start with a push spreader and, a backpack sprayer, or even, a 2-gallon sprayer. So, so your thoughts, JC?
Yeah. So let's put it this way. And Scott, I think you work for this company, right?
I did probably.
There's a reason why certain companies just do fertilizer.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about taking that on, my biggest thing would be, number one, if you have your own property to work on, like, try that out first. And then don't bite off more than you could chew. Maybe sell it to 2 customers and just deal with that. Do everything else you normally do, but for those 2 customers, offer those services. Even if you break even on it, you're still learning, right?
Yeah.
Obviously we don't, you want to make some money, but you use those properties as like, your trial. Obviously you don't want to screw those up, but you see how it goes, you see how the business end goes of it, because the business end is very complex. If you can't handle those first 2 properties that first year, and you're not like really able to like manage the money well, and buying the product, stuff like that, I wouldn't recommend going forward. I would do what Scott says and sell it to just to another company to come in and do that, because you'll be able to multiply your clients a lot more by taking that tactic as opposed to actually trying to do it yourself. And the other thing too, it's like a lot of companies will offer, it's easy. We'll just offer a 4-step program. Again, not every lawn is the same. And if the pH level is too low, you're wasting that product, because the ground and the grass is not absorbing that stuff anyways. So it's super complex. The last thing I want to say about that is, don't be that company that the owner goes out and gets the license and then, oh, I'm good. We're, our company's good. We're licensed. And then hire 5 or 6 schmucks to go out there and apply fertilizer who are not licensed or not educated. That's why, if you're able to do that, have 2 or 3 guys that are dedicated to be able to kind of do that task. Maybe something else, nothing too crazy, but their main focus should be on that fertilization.
Yeah, I think you got to, because like you said, it sometimes can be very expensive, especially when you first start out and you take a whole bunch of companies. And it can be beneficial for you to be able to work with another company sometimes and let another company do it for you, especially if you work with just a straight fertilization company, or maybe work with a company that's doing like fertilization, irrigation, And you can just kind of just sit back and, do the mowing. And it's something you can offer your customers and say, hey, I have a guy that's going to fertilize it for you. He'll do it for me. You pay me, I turn around and take care of him. So it can be a win-win for both you guys in the long run.
I think, and I think it's like, if you're gonna do it, man, a lot of business people are gonna say I'm wrong,
Right,
but if you're gonna do it, you have to run it like two separate businesses. I'm sorry,
right.
like you can't be an all-in-one. It's like we talked about years ago about, hey, we offer this service and this service and this service and this service and window cleaning and door repairs and all that stuff. You can't be a jack of all trades and take on a task like that. If you're going to do fertilizer, treat it like a separate business, man. Treat it like a separate business.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. All right. Josh's got one more question. We got time for one more question, guys. What is the easiest, best, and fastest way for soil testing? Like I said before, easiest way is to have a soil probe. And it's one of the easiest and fastest ways. But if you don't have a soil probe, they cost about 45 to 150. I think mine was 150 bucks. But I've had mine for like 25 years. Still in good condition. But if you don't have that, the easiest thing is you go to the store, you can go to the dollar store, they have them sometimes, or go over to Lowe's or any hardware store, one of those little shovels, and just dig out a little bit of soil, put it in a bag. And then, like I said, contact your Department of Ag or find out where your local fertilization company is that sells fertilizer, like SiteOne. Trying to think, what's that other company that besides SiteOne? There's another company that sells.
Well, we have Valley Green in our area.
Okay.
Valley Green's one of them.
Okay. I know there's a couple other ones too, in different areas that SiteOne doesn't touch, but you want to contact those people and ask them if they do soil testing. Soil testing's pretty cheap. The most expensive I've seen is, I think, like 150 bucks, but I think it's usually about 40 bucks to get it soil tested around me. So, and it usually takes about a week to, about 3 weeks to get back the results. And they won't send you your soil back, so don't worry about that. You don't have to worry about that, but they'll send you, some information on it. And sometimes they give you little tips on what you can put down, like JC said, putting lime down, or, you can put down some different applications to make sure that fertilizer is working out perfectly too. So that's one of the good things you can do. And there is soil amendments that you can put down that aren't, you don't have to have a fertilization license for. Is that correct, JC? Because I know
I smile at that because, man, I don't understand for years and years and years why these companies don't take the opportunity to do that, man. It's so cheap and you can make so much money doing it. You get humic acid applications, which acid sounds like it's like the super chemical. It's not. It's all natural product. That is some of the most beneficial stuff that, even without fertilizer, putting that stuff down will help the grass take up the natural nutrients that are already in the soil. It opens that avenue up. And I made a video on YouTube, man. I got to put that back up again.
Yes, you do.
On how cheap it is and how much money you could actually make doing it. It's simple. You can't put too much of it on. You can't put too little of it. Look into humic acids, man. It's definitely something.
Humic acid. See, there's things you guys can put down, and you don't have to have a license for it because it's not technically a fertilizer or a pesticide or herbicide. So definitely look into that, guys.
The soil test is going to do you no good if you don't know how to read it.
Yes.
So like, okay, you can do a soil test. You get your results. It's like Mandarin Chinese to you. You don't know what it is. But
right.
Again, part of that is being educated and knowing what you need to put down.
Right. And like I said, some places will send you, tips and tell you this is where you want to be at on your pH and all that stuff. So, it's always good to look into a couple different places and see what's the best, soil test company for you guys. So, well, guys, we've had a good talk so far today. We've got about 10 more minutes, and then we're going to jump off for tonight. JC, anything else you want to add about what we can do for our lawns in the spring besides fertilizer? Is it a perfect time to get that irrigation turned on? How about that one?
Right now?
Yeah, let's go turn our irrigation on now.
I would not recommend that. You're going to get another below 0 day, and snow. Yeah. So again, keep your blades sharp. When we get into the season, if you are going to put spot treatments to kill weeds, don't mow the lawn and then do it.
Right.
You're going to wait a couple, 2 days, spray it, and then 2 or 3 days later, then mow it, or don't spray, right after mowing. Depends on the thatching. Sometimes thatch is good for a lawn.
Yeah. Aerations are good right now. You can go out and aerate a lawn right now. It's a perfect time to aerate and overseed if you're going to overseed, and then hold off on that pre-emergent. If you're going to put pre-emergent down, or if you're going to aerate a lawn for a customer, go ahead and let them know, like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and aerate your lawn, and if you want me to throw seed down, I can throw seed down, which will help thicken up your lawn, but you're not going to be able to use your pre-emergent. So, that's a good thing to let them know, because if you can get that in earlier, then they're putting down the pre-emergent. Maybe their company might be able to hold off on doing a pre-emergent for a little bit, but sometimes it's not going to work in the spring. I usually tell my customers to wait till fall for overseeding and aerations, but it is a good time to get that lawn aerated too, right before the season. So breaks up that compactation from the winter snow and all that stuff. So definitely is a good thing for your lawn too. So have them sell them customers that. So yeah. All right. I don't have anything else. Do you?
No, it was a good podcast. I mean, I like when we got into the fertilizer conversation. It's right around that time, so.
Yeah, we guys got into some good stuff. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We had a lot of people joined in over on Instagram. Thank you guys. Like I said before, our show's up all the time on Spotify, iHeart, Apple. So you guys can go back and listen to any part that you guys need to. You can watch us also on YouTube over at Landscapes by Acme anytime you want. We got tons of episodes up, so there's a lot of stuff. You can sit there, watch it, see how funny we look when we talk about this stuff. It is always funny to watch us sometimes. Sometimes it's not. But you can always watch us also on what is that? Spotify. Spotify does have some of our episodes that are live on Spotify if you have Spotify Premium. But I want to thank our sponsors, Pro Parts Direct, and also I want to thank Cujo, because springtime's around the block and they're having their President's Day sale till tomorrow, guys. So if you need to go ahead and get those shoes or pants, go ahead and get out there and get them. You're going to save about 15% today and tomorrow. So go out there and get ready for the spring, guys.
Cujo, send me pants. I want pants.
He wants the pants, Cujo. We need pants.
32-32. 32-32.
32-32. All right. We need pants. Somebody send pants for him. Okay. I know I got a pair at Equip.
Because I'm not wearing any pants right now. So
I figured that. Everybody, we all sit here. We just got shirts on above. Yep. We don't have nothing on underneath. So just to let you guys know that. Just joking. We do have clothes.
I'm not joking.
I can believe that with JC. Okay, guys. We're just believe that. Okay. But thank you guys all for listening and watching. Thanks for continuously watching. And thanks for the question, guys. We love having your questions. DM us with any questions you ever have, and we will try to pop on the show and talk about them at any time. And hopefully next week we can get JC on with Josh also. Maybe Josh, we can recreate him as another AI character, and he'll pop on. But Bright Stone says he doesn't want that mental image of you naked underneath. So okay. Brightstone, he's gonna send you a picture, okay, from sitting at his desk, okay,
Autographed.
autographed, okay. So thanks guys for watching and listening. We